Hey everyone, happy Tuesday. We've been off for a while, but we sure have fun with these philosophy talks. And I just figured out today how you can bring a guest in. So if you'd ever like to do one of these with Dr. Brian and I, let me know. And then there'll be three of us across the screen instead of just two of us. And what would be great too is if you're somebody who maybe you have a different opinion, or maybe not even an opinion, but just like you have some questions and you'd really like help working through it. Here's my philosophy about this, and I'm confident Brian would support me on this, is if you have a question or you have a challenge, it's likely there are hundreds of others that have the same challenge or the same question. It's just no one is stepping up to ask. So I was always the person. I remember in biology class in high school, I'm really good at asking questions. And so the teacher the day before an exam would go over stuff and we could ask questions, and he'd go over things, and like the classes, I was like, more questions, Barb, because if it took too long, then he would postpone the test, and eventually he caught on to my game, and we ended up having the test the next day, but I sure gave it a good run. And Patrina is with us, and Kat, welcome, ladies. It's great to see you. Thanks for always representing. Kat says Dooley is in the house. Yes, he is. That is true. So we are on number 16, and what I'd like you to do when you join me is just like throw in the comment section that my buddy here is now the faculty representative at Sherman College. So he killed it. And if you appreciate that for his extra time and effort in promoting chiropractic through Sherman College, I would appreciate you give him a little love in the comment section, or throw up a heart or a thumbs up. So Dr. Brian, thanks for joining me tonight.
Sure. Or they could just send money. If they would just send money, that would be terrific. That would be great.
Are you a Seinfeld fan, the Human Fund?
I am a Seinfeld. Yes, the Dooley Fund there's two O's in Dooley. So it's very similar to the Human Fund. It's helping Dooleys of all kind. And it's an organization that I support, and I am 100% behind.
That's right.
So, Facebook message me and I'll give you the address. It's great.
That's right. And the creator is one heck of a guy.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. One of my favorites. Solid aces. Solid.
Right. Hey, so have you dug into those books I sent you?
Not yet, but I am for probably. I'm flying to Philadelphia this weekend, so I'll start digging then.
All right. Which one are you going to do first?
I don't know. The Purple Toes, it was an interesting cover, so I like those interesting covers. So I'll probably dig into that one first.
So Rich wrote that with two of his sons.
Mm-hmm.
Did I tell you about Rich?
I don't know.
I gotta tell you about this guy. So he and his wife Gay have had 5 sons, or have 5 sons, and when these sons turned 12, Rich would take each one of them alone and spend a month in a third world country, so that each of his sons could experience that life outside the U.S. isn't quite as grand as it is inside the U.S., right? So that's 5 years old. At 14 years old, he wanted each one of them to have a personal victory, like to have to really push through something. And so they summited one of the top mountain peaks throughout the world, the son and the mom and the dad. And then when they were 16, he helped 4 of the 5 sons start a company that then had an valuation of $1 million or more by the time he graduated from high school. And then the son that he didn't start a company with, he wrote that book with. So to talk about a standard in terms of raising our children, right?
Yeah, really.
I was going to have mine graduated. Woo! All right.
Mine didn't sniff glue today, so hey.
That's right. That's funny. So at any rate, I hope that you really enjoy them. And he wrote both of those books. And
beautiful. Well, thank you. I'm sure I will. They'll be good.
Yeah, you'll love them. All right. So number 16. What does that say?
16 is intelligence in both organic and inorganic matter. So universal intelligence gives force to both organic and inorganic matter. And this can be a confusing one because it starts with how would you define organic? So this came up in class. Sherman has a policy that if you did not graduate from Sherman and you work at Sherman, you have to sit through the philosophy classes so that they understand what our philosophy is. And so we have an anatomist who's working in our anatomy lab. So she comes from a very biologically based background. And so this was one, and it was great having her in class because she was one of the people you just mentioned. She asked all the questions all the other students were afraid to ask at 8 o'clock in the morning. And she asked every one of them. And so what it led to a lot of times was when she and I would leave class, we'd go down to the cafe, we'd continue our discussion. Half the time the students would miss class to sit with us. So it was really good conversation. So it can be confusing because what do they mean by organic and inorganic? And so in this case, as we've been talking about universal intelligence, we've been talking about it's in every matter, right? So it gives force to matter, it gives force to everything. So not just your biological organisms, but then also your organisms, the table, not that it's an organism, but the table you're sitting at has universal intelligence in it. Doesn't have innate, but it has universal, and there's universal forces that are holding that table together. So whether it's friction, whether it's whatever the bonds of the glue, whatever the protons, neutrons, and electrons to make wood are doing, those types of things. So what they're doing with the principles here is now they're starting to diverge because the idea behind the 33 was, why am I putting my hand, why is my piezoform on that atlas at that moment? And so now we start with major premise says universal intelligence is in all matter. And now we're breaking off. We're saying, all right, that's great. The tables are over here. But now we're going to start working to maybe what we would call living things or biological things. But even still, you and I, we have universal forces inside us. So again, strong, weak nuclear bonds, gravity's working on us, thermodynamics, all those type of stuff. Those would be universal forces that our innate's got to work within and around to keep us functioning. So that's 16. So there's universal. Yeah, that's it. I mean, universal intelligence, the whole thing is that it gives force to both organic and inorganic matter. That's it. And so what it's basically saying is now you have maybe what we would call biologically living and non-biologically living, right? Every bit of that has organic matter, has force created by universal intelligence. On top of that, we're going to have innate as well in you and I. That's going to be working with those innate or universal forces to keep us in existence and surviving and thriving, hopefully, without the presence of a vertebral subluxation.
Well, that was
make sense?
One. I mean, not one we probably talk about a lot in your practice.
No.
It's not as much fun. I'm just going to say
that. Well, we'll go right into 17 because that is a fun one. But yeah, that's a great argument. What's this going to mean to me for the practitioner? Well, really nothing, other than the fact it is important. It is important for us to realize that there's universal forces in our matter, right?
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that innate's using to, innate's taking universal forces and then working them into innate forces so that we survive and thrive. So we just need to know that, there's universal forces inside us that innate's working. When the sun's beating down on me, that universal force is now inside me that innate's got to do something with. If it can't, it's going to burn me. If it can, it makes vitamin D, right? And does all the other healthy things. So it is an important thing. This is just kind of the fork in the road to now we're going to be really talking about more, biologically living things because innates get ready to come in the picture in principle number 20. So we just haven't got there yet. Now we can actually, I'll tell you what, we can knock out 19 because 19 actually defines organic matter as the material body of a living thing is organized matter, right? So that's what they're saying. And now when they're saying living thing here, this is where maybe it gets fun, is if you remember principle number 2 is universal intelligence expressed through matter is the chiropractic meaning of life. So because there's universal intelligence in the matter of your table, there's chiropractic life there. Does that make sense? Which a better word would probably be either organization or existence. But when they wrote down principle 2, they called it life. Now they're saying a living thing, but in this case, it's not just something that it exists, but it's biologically living. And how we're going to know that it's biologically living. So we're going to do the principles a little bit backwards today. They're doing the evidence of life. So the 5 signs of life, which are going to be growth, assimilation, elimination, adaptation, and reproduction. If an organism is doing those 5 things, then it's considered a living thing per chiropractic philosophy.
And say them again.
The 5 signs?
Yeah.
So there's growth, right? So
Okay.
that thing's going to grow somehow. There's reproduction. So not just
growth for a second.
Yeah.
So then chiropractically, I would say we have a personal responsibility to be growing ourselves, not just like our waistline, or not because this dog is jumping on me, but we have a personal responsibility to grow, right? Like that's a sign of life happening is growth.
Sure.
Right. So then
growth. Yeah. So I like what you're saying there, because with growth, educational is growth. I don't know, certainty, clarity, and procedures is growth, right? That's why you have to practice a script or a procedure or how to answer the phone. I was telling my wife, she said, I walk in, she's very nice and says, how'd your day go? I said, it was friggin' awesome right up until the very end. And so by the very end, we had a great Tuesday. We had some really good, didn't have a day one that person, didn't show up. That happens. So she called. We haven't gotten in touch with them yet. Had some great day 2s. So people signing up for care, paying for it all up front. Yay, chiropractic. But then we had a patient that didn't come in. So, well, what happened to him? Oh, well, isn't this normally still basketball season? I don't know. Did you call him and find out? And she's like, oh, well, no, I'll do it tomorrow. And it's like, that's no good. Right? So that's not helping our practice grow. So what do I have to do? We've got to sit down and say, this is why this procedure is important, because it could easily have been he just forgot. It could easily have. What's that?
Organize the matter.
Organize the matter, and that's not what happened in this case. So my matter left a little more disorganized than I wanted it to be. So in order for my practice to grow, my CA has to grow.
Yes.
And and I have to grow too. So let me not put this all on the CA. But then, so now you take the growth side of things, right? Now, biologically, we would talk to you and I were a lot shorter at one time, right? So we're growing. And so maybe we're growing out as much as, and certainly more than up, but that's another story. But then, so the other thing's going to be, one of it's going to be assimilation. What do you take in? So, living things, quote unquote, we're looking at what do we eat, drink, and breathe. So we take those elements in, and now the body or innate's got to assimilate that and say, I want to put this nutrient over here and this mineral over here. But then also we're looking at, obviously, if you go to what we're talking with our practice, my CA did not assimilate that information real well. It could be because I didn't deliver it real well. So I have to own that and say, all right, listen, this is why this is hugely important. And let me back up and say, just as a pat on my own back, was we had a great year last year. And we had a great year because of she grew a lot in procedures that we weren't doing with our former CA. And that's why she's a former CA. And so that's why, that would be good evidence there. But and again, it actually wasn't, and I'm going to say it wasn't all former CA's fault. I put her in the wrong job. And so that's another important thing is for me, as I grow as a manager of people, when I'm hiring somebody that's a financial CA may not be able to be a front desk CA or a tech CA, and vice versa. And so that's something that I had to grow in. And so, the assimilation is going to be, she obviously, for whatever reason, hasn't assimilated the importance and the urgency of doing the procedures just as we say. Another situation that she's done, I hate to pick on her, but I will because she's not here. That's how we do things, right? I walked in, our target market, like a lot of people, we want to get the moms and the kids and that type of stuff, because typically moms will lead to the husbands, and they're also lead to other, to the grandparents, because moms are usually taking care of everybody. So they tend to be our target market. And so, one of the things, what kind of scent do you want? Like essential oil. So I'd ask people, put it on Facebook, what do you like? And lavender tended to be a big one. So, all right, we'll just get a couple of lavender deals. And so now the office smells like lavender. It smells fine. But I walk in one day and the scent was changed. And you notice those things right away when you're the business owner.
Yeah.
And so it had changed the organization. And I think at that point, she, at one point, what we realized, a lot of the scent would just sit in the back of the office. So you walk in the door and you are walking through the nebula of lavender. And so this haze, we have too many of the plugins are plugged in. So let's take out a few. But she had changed it to a different scent. And it's like, you can't do that until we talk about it. I'm not saying it can't be done, but there's a reason why I picked the lavender, because an awful lot of people in my target market liked that smell. So I want them, when they smell lavender, to say, oh yeah, that's Pickens Family Chiropractic. If they're out, and they're at a nursery and they smell lavender, or they go somewhere else, oh, this smells just like the chiropractor's office. It's like
Nice.
grandma's, cookies. And the other part of it was the scent that she picked was clean sheets. And I said, I don't know, but I don't want to remind my wife about the laundry.
Yeah.
So even though the scent was pleasant, it is pleasant, but it's like, now guess what? These tired moms that are coming into my office, hey, oh, it smells just like the laundry that I got to go home and do.
Yeah.
And I don't want that to be part of their experience.
Right.
And so I have to go back and see, all right, listen, let's assimilate. I want you to assimilate some information, right? Here's why I'm doing these types of things. And if it turns out she just can't flat assimilate it and abide by it, then you got to get a new one. And that goes with any procedure. And so that's assimilation, is bringing in stuff. The opposite of assimilation, then you get rid of stuff. So you're going to have to do some elimination, right? We kind of know how that works biologically.
Yeah.
And so, but in your office, so are there, a great example that I had, years ago when I opened my office, a massage therapist asked if she could be an independent contractor. So sure. And so she was renting out of my office, and we kind of sort of shared a few clients, not many. But then I was talking with a couple of buddies that had gotten hired by Sherman a couple of years ago. And so they came over, and we were at the ale house next door, but said, come on, we'll go show you the office. And so we had been talking about, the whole principle of chiropractic thing, just locate, analyze, correct vertebral subluxations. And so my buddy, and it's Rick Brescia, so if he's out there, he's fantastic, a great Gunstead doc. And he says, what the blippity blip 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 is this person doing here in your office? Why do you have a massage therapist in there? And so his point was, if you're going to be just a chiropractic office, be a chiropractic office. I'm like, well, that makes a pretty good point. And so I had arranged with my landlord, found that massage therapist a better place, and that opened up that room to where now I could, because at the time I was doing exams and adjusting in only one room. And so if I had a new patient, it really slowed down the amount of people that I could see. And first, let me say, I'm not bashing massage, but for me, it's not a chiropractic thing. It's a massage thing. So it's different. And so then opening or getting that second room, now that I could be doing exams in there. So if people are gowning, I could come out and check a few people, and then I can go back in. I think it's better to do your exams and your adjusting separate. But with my schedule as a teacher, I just don't have the time. And so, but being able to, now one thing that Shelby did do really well, so if I can lift her up, was I'm coming in late because I got stuck at school. She's like, we have got a lobby full of people. Can we use both rooms today? Yes, that'll be fantastic. So just start alternating people. And at the end of the day, I'm like, that was freaking awesome. Right? Because it made me infinitely faster.
Yeah.
It was without sacrificing patient care.
Right.
And so having that space, so that was a case where she did assimilate some information, because we were talking about going to both offices. I was really just using it as an exam room, but then we had talked to go into, hell, let's just do it. And so now it's that. I said, Shelby, you do that every day. Whether there's 100 people in the lobby or 2, they ought to both be in the rooms. Both rooms should be full. and it just will make us faster. And so now we're seeing numbers higher than any that I've seen before since I've been teaching, just because we've eliminated some things that were holding us back. So in the case of this particular massage therapist, she was holding me back from being able to see more people because she was in my space. And so, all right, well, and the other side of it, her healing is very therapeutic. So there, as I would hear her talking to people, there wasn't a lot about why would they, her people ever come to the chiropractor. There just wasn't a lot of that stuff. And it's like, well, it's my office, so you either speak my message or you get out. I mean, that's just, that's the way it goes. And so that was a situation of eliminating that. I don't know, what other things might you eliminate?
So I have a question about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the whole comment, like, you're a chiropractic office. Why do you have a massage therapist in here?
Right.
Yeah, she's not a chiropractor. She's not doing chiropractic. I understand where people are coming from, kind of from it.
Right.
When they say that, but to me, it's just dogma, because somewhere somebody said, if you do other things in your office, no one is saying that's chiropractic, right? Or if you have supplements, no one's saying that's chiropractic. They're just saying individuals are coming to this office, and there are other people who are delivering these services.
So, right. And then,
it wasn't like you were going from one room and you're adjusting and then you're running over there and doing a half an hour massage. You know what I mean?
So, yeah, I'm with you. And so, the argument's going to be to the public, though, right? If it says chiropractic on the sign and those things are in the office, whether the doctor's doing it or whether somebody else is doing it, the public may interpret that as chiropractic, as part of the chiropractic experience. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. So then you just tell them, this is a massage therapist. This is a chiropractor.
Right.
You know what I mean?
But people are people, right? So what's the difference?
Yeah.
So for me, let me put it.
People get confused when they walk into my office and they see a CA sitting there like, oh, chiropractor? No, I just think.
I don't think they're doing that, but I'm going to make it. So it depends on the straight or the mixing side of things. Right. So adding in the other things would be mixing. Doesn't mean those things are bad. I get a massage regularly. I just don't get it done in my office. I don't have anybody in my office to do it. I choose not to do nutrition because me personally, I'm not well schooled in it. So I have a nutritionist that I send them to. If they want to do stretches and exercise, I make a relationship with the Y and send them down there. Part of that is also to build my referral base. If I'm doing everything in the office, those people aren't going to refer to me. But if I'm sharing my list with them, then we can have some back and forth as far as referrals. And again, for me, I choose to just specialize totally in checking and adjusting the spine. That's what I choose for my office. That's what Rick chose for his office. And so knowing that we were having this conversation, that's where his comment came from. And so, so that's what I do. And so, that's it.
And I'm just, and this isn't like the reason for those of you who are watching or who watch this later, the reason I'm having this conversation is that no one else brings it up, right? It's only that we talk about behind closed doors. And so I'm more so bringing it up as to, okay, so the public is confused about what? Like what? Like I feel like that's just something that we keep saying, and they're confused about what. Like I go to my chiropractor's office, I get adjusted, and my chiropractor also has a massage therapist there,
right?
And the two of them have conversations about the fact that I don't know, I'm on my computer all the time, and so my muscles are all fired up. Because my traps are like this, and I'm you know what I mean? Like I feel like sometimes we take in our profession, somebody somewhere said this thing, and then it sounds really good, so we pass it along without just stopping and let's think about it for a minute. Like the public perception is if they go into a chiropractor's office, and I'm with you on the I'm with you on that stuff. If you're not specifically trained to do that thing, I don't think it's ours to do. I have no intention of being a nutritionist. I don't know enough about it. barely to keep myself out of hot water, let alone to lead somebody else. But the whole idea of the public perception, I don't know. I don't know what I think about that.
Well, how many, what's the perspective?
You just froze. What?
Did I freeze? Am I back? Am I unfroze? So
back.
what is the percentage of people that use the chiropractor?
What do you mean that use? Like nationally?
Yeah.
I mean, all I've ever been told is when I was in chiro school, I always heard it was 10%. And now recently I hear it's 8%.
Right. So if that's true, and let's measure that and find the source. Let's just assume that that's true. So 1 in 10 people are using a chiropractor. The argument could be if we would specify, and there's a good book called the 22 Immutable Laws of Branding. So it's a marketing book, not a chiropractic book.
Oh, nice.
And the first couple of laws, they've got the law of expansion and the law of contraction. And their point is that as a brand, as you expand what you do, you're going to lose influence. Versus as you contract, so become more focused on what you do, you gain more influence because you're seen as more of a specialist. And so I've had students that make the good point that you make. Well, I'm just offering, is the massage bad? No, massage is bad as the show. Is working out. No, none of that's bad from a profession branding standpoint, because we don't have the cultural authority for people, in my opinion, to think how many different, beyond the chiropractic adjustment. Well, let's see. Even using the adjustment, how many different techniques are out there? How many different, now you have these models at all these different things. And so, of course, if somebody needs something super specific, I would love it to be that, if I have a patient and they're going to Alaska, well, you need to go to Dr. Eaton because, she and I practice pretty similarly because we have the same idea. But I'm afraid to send my people to certain people. And because it's not practicing the way that I practice, and not that I have all the answers, but if I look at it and if, the people in my office, do they get symptomatically well? They do. That's not what I'm after, right? I'm checking and adjusting their spine and letting innate do the rest. But often time they do. So the argument's going to be, let's clear the subluxation and let's see what innate can do versus throwing them on the table right away to get the massage, right? Because what if innate's able to do it? We're not able to help innate. We can't help innate. Innate's innate, right? So we're hopefully putting some things, we were putting in a universal force that innate's able to use. So the chiropractic adjustment's a universal force, and we'll get to that in a few principles. But then innate's able to use that to move the bone. And so for me to be a specialist, I believe I can command more authority. I believe I can command more money doing that way. So, Wild Doc, why are you $80 and the doc down the street's $35? Because the guy down the street's got 57 other things going on. And so that's Walmart. And so do you want to be a Walmart of chiropractic, right? Or do you want to be the Louis Vuitton of chiropractic? And that's a decision somebody would have to make. There is the argument that you can do these different things in your practice, and it's convenient, and it absolutely is, right? So I've had a student say that they're okay with being the Walmart of chiropractic or of healthcare. And it's like, well, that's fair enough. But also, what do people typically associate with Walmart's goods?
Cheap.
There you go. And so you've got to be okay. Right. So you've got to be okay that if you go into the office, I got moved from here to here to here to here, right? You've got to be okay that, all right, there might be the perception that that's a little bit cheap versus, in my opinion, if we're checking and adjusting spines, right? That's what we do here. So I am fine sending someone to upper cervical, to Gunstead, to Thompson, to whatever, as long as they're checking and adjusting spines. And that's what chiropractic is. I know my son years ago when he was a baby had an issue that he needed to see a pediatric urologist. Didn't even know there was such a thing. And in South Carolina at the time, there wasn't one in the state. And so a guy would come down from Charlotte to Greenville, South Carolina, like once a month. And so I take my son for this issue, and we go up. And when the guy walked into the room, from his sweater and his haircut, I thought, this is going to cost some money. Whatever he says. But he was the best of the best of the best. And he was a pediatric urologist, which is pretty doggone specialized, right? And so what do people feel about their GPs? They're just the gateway to go to the specialist, right? Who do you want giving you heart surgery? Do you want the GP or do you want the cardiologist? That all they do is heart surgeries. So, what do you want in the office? And so, yeah, that's where I would go with that. And so that works for me. It may work different for other people. You're rocking. I see that you're rocking.
I'm trying so hard not to interrupt.
That's okay. No, I'm done now. So go ahead and retort.
You are. I firmly believe when we interrupt people, we're basically saying to them, you don't have as much value as I do. And I don't like interrupters. All right. So several different things here, right? So 100% being the best specialist and dominating that market, 100%, I think like driving to that in your own practice is the way to go, or whatever business you're doing, that is the way to go. Please understand, and I've had several people reach out to me recently about this, you don't start out there. Okay. So we have to start out by spreading a big net, right? Because if I'm like, these are the only people I'm going to see, I see nobody right now because I'm brand new to practice. I don't think that we come to market as a specialist. We come to market, we spread a wide net, which then, I'm always thinking in terms of fishing, right? Which then comes around like this. And as you get better, then you sort and determine who are you best suited to serve.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. So you're developing your target market over time.
You're developing your target market over time. And maybe this is different for men, but for women, typically you'll start with a certain kind of practice. And then if you become a mom while you're in practice, then, your kids are doing things. So then you're in this market, right? And then your kids get older and then you're in this market, because typically our practices follow what our family is doing, right? So you become a specialist over time and with experience. So for those of you who are new to practice and everyone is like, you got to be niched, you got to be niched, you got to be niched, is only serve these people. And you're like, well, wait a minute, there aren't really enough people in my practice coming in. I want to encourage all of you, don't beat yourselves up, right? It's okay to be wide and then to bring it in as you sort and get better and become known as the specialist in that niche. So the niche thing is one element. So we kind of went all the way to why in a practice is the public's perception confused about what chiropractic is. Well, the public learns who you are because of the message that you tell. And I want to encourage everybody to this is a really great book to understand the difference between your story and your truth. Mm-hmm. And if you're somebody who really struggles with I just don't really understand where I stand in chiropractic philosophy, I just want to tell you it's okay, but please don't stop there. And please don't beat yourself up, because I was just talking to a woman today who she's like, I just didn't get philosophy in school. So it's been really easy for me to do all of these other things, but I really want to understand it. I'm like, it's okay. It's okay. Now is the opportunity for you to learn. So if you're somebody who struggles with that, please read this book and develop not your story, which is the polished thing, but instead your truth.
Yeah. And may I say, yes, as when I refer to myself as a specialist, that's somebody that checks and adjusts spines.
Yes.
I'm going to let whoever the hell comes in my office. And if my target market is moms, the only reason I market to them, that's a gateway to get everybody else. Because in most communities, mom's taking care of everything. And so, they're the ones that are getting the kids. So that's where, when I say specialist, I don't have other services in the office other than the checking and adjusting of spines. So I want to be just clear as far as that. And yes, when you're developing your target market, which my practice is different now than it was when I started, and I haven't been out all that long, but still is different. Your red velvet rope is going to be different depending on where you are in practice. So who you're letting in, who you're not letting in. The thing for me, I've had a couple of people recently. So one lady came in And she came in saying she wanted all these other things that were outside the chiropractic adjustment. And I said, well, we don't do that here. This is what we do. I said, do you still want to proceed? And she said, okay. And so went through her report of findings. And then she just really just was, I just don't feel like I'm going to get what I need to get done. Then I said, well, let's send you somewhere else.
Yeah.
That where you're going to get that. And so that person certainly wasn't right. And then another lady recently came in and she was upfront and said she wanted other things. I said, we don't do that here. How about we find, if that's what you want, I'm going to send you somewhere else. Just because I don't do that there. And so because their definition of chiropractic was not just checking and adjusting spines, but also the addition of those other things. And so that's what I say where the world gets confused as to what it is. We as a profession, so if me and those practitioners define chiropractic, you're going to get two very different definitions. I bet.
Well, yeah, I would
And
agree
then
with that too. And I don't personally
yeah.
think that we get to change the definition of it. Like we don't change the, I mean, there are all kinds of new words that didn't exist when you and I were kids. Right? Like,
Yeah.
we didn't have iPad. Like who knows what iPod was, or whatever. Like
right.
we don't then change the definition. I don't think we get to change the definition. The definition was established in 1895. And if you're a chiropractor and you do chiropractic, that's what it is. 100%.
Have you, let me ask, hands up, because I don't want to interrupt you either, because you're a nice lady and you're valuable. Have you ever had, because I've had it before, where you see on their intake paperwork, they're doing, they've been to the chiropractor before. I like to ask how their experience was because they're going to tell me. And most of the time it's good. They're coming to me because they're moving or something like that. But so this particular lady, I said, well, this is what we're going to do. So I explained what my exam was going to be. We're going to take some x-rays and I'm going to check your spine and adjust you. And she goes, well, hang on a minute. I said, what? She goes, well, what's an adjustment? And so when I looked at her paperwork, I said, you've been to the chiropractor before. Well, what did they do to you? And in that case, all they did was hook them up to machines. And so that's where the stuff gets confusing. So I agree with you. The definition's the definition. So let's just do the definition. But there's plenty of people out there that are being liberal, I guess, with the definition, right? Plastic with it. And that started in 1902 with Solon Langworthy bringing in physical therapeutics to his school. And I'm not putting him down. He just brought it in because an awful lot of the beginning chiropractors were MDs looking for another tool in their black bag. And those are the guys that were studying chiropractic. So they were coming from an allopathic mindset all along and using chiropractic as a therapy. And so that's where we've been confused since 1902. And so it's not just like this is something that just happened. And that's why you've got two cams. And now it used to be, right, the straights and the mixers, you had the chiropractic only practices. And then you had the chiropractic and add in a couple other services. Now you've got it's chiropractor and medipractor, right? So now we're doing things where we're fixing conditions and all those types of things. And that's where it's kind of getting confused. So what's been assimilated and eliminated is kind of garbled. And so the profession hasn't been able to grow. And it's been harder to reproduce ourselves, which is another sign of life. So it's been harder to reproduce. So we're stuck on this 10%. And there's a great, and I'm sure you've seen it. Have you seen the Simon Sinek video about the leadership? Start with why? You know that guy?
I've listened to his book. I just can't get very far into it. I don't know.
Well,
I've tried many times. I have not seen that video.
So if you go on YouTube, it's called Start with Why. And it's less than 20 minutes. He's basically doing a TED Talk.
Okay.
And he talks about this bell curve. And he said, you've got your early adopters. These are the people that are just going to go for things. Then you've got, kind of like your late adopters. And then you've got the slow people. And you got the real slow people, like they're still using rotary phones. We've been forever on people that just are desperate to do something different, right? Because allopathy's failed them in some way. So we're stuck with those people. We've never crossed that bridge, the whole tipping point. Everybody's heard, whoever's been in chiropractic school, we're right at the tipping point. We're right at it. Well, we've been at it forever. And so and we're going to stay here if we continue doing things the same way. And so my argument would be, so in order to push the profession forward, just love the adjustment, love the check of the spine, and build your business when you're specialized. Like, yeah, why does yours cost $100 in your office? This is all I do, and I'm really good at it. And that's what my price is going to be. So you set your price whatever you want it to be. And you could certainly make it less than that if you wanted to. So I'm not saying you have to price people out, but it's that's what I like to do. And that's why that also makes me really efficient in the office. And so therefore my office is not a lot of space. So, I farm out my x-rays, so I don't have to pay for that stuff. I get great x-rays back that I can look at. And then I've got my 2 rooms that I'm just buzzing along, seeing more people than I ever have. And I'm making a heck of a lot more money than I ever had too, because what I was getting out of the massage therapist, I am making way more. I might get that. What she paid me in a month, I'm probably getting that in
a morning,
in an hour. Yeah, in an hour. And so,
right.
so that's the other side of it. And two, so maybe I don't have $1 million practice, but if you had $1 million practice and $900,000 of overhead, you're making $100,000. But if you've got a $200,000 practice and you only had 50,000 of overhead, you're taking home 150. Who's happier?
I can't say. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, just because somebody's doing $1 million and has $900,000 in overhead, I'm not gonna. I have no idea if they're happy.
Right.
Who's only got
that's the thing.
they want to be serving way more people and doesn't know how to do it. So I don't.
No. And that would be a great point. So now that I'm as lead, so I am getting to the point where what I wanted my practice for a while was being, let me just have it as a hobby. I'm doing this teaching gig. I kind of want to still have some skin in the game. So it will be a hobby. And so I was good seeing with whatever I was seeing. But then as I started ramping up my procedures, and now I started to see, and this too is growth, because when you get out of school, you can't see, 300 people a week, the magic number, and then everything above it. So that's really hard to see when the most you've been able to see in school is probably about 4 or 5 people in a day, right? So that's 25 people a week. And so it's hard to see that. But then when I started seeing what I could do, now my vision has changed, right? So it's definitely transformed the office. And now things are humming the best they have in the 6 years since I've been teaching. And it's great. And the fact is, because my procedures have gotten better, I'm actually getting to levels of seeing people during a day that I was doing in 3 hours that I was doing in 8, because my procedures are a lot more crisp. So things that I may eliminate, I don't talk to my patients about the weather near as much as I used to, because that takes time. Things that I eliminate was working by myself. So bringing in a CA that can take a lot of the tasks for me so that I can specialize even more in checking and adjusting spines. And of course that would be assimilating that CA and bringing that person into the practice as well. That's helping me reproduce better and better days. So we've got our daily target that we want to meet, that she gets bonuses. And so we're doing a heck of a lot more of those in the past few months than we were for the years leading up to that, because our procedures are getting really clean, because we've done principle 15 and putting in the effort. Perfect, no. And then, so what's the other one? So growth, assimilation, reproduction. So adaptation that's the big one. That's, as chiropractors, what we're really looking at, that our patients innate can adapt to all these universal forces. So all these things that are coming to practice, I have to adapt to. So she misdid a procedure today. I have to adapt to that. Now, how I respond to her is going to be my adaptation. So I could just cuss her blue streak right now, but that's not going to get me anywhere with this particular person. So I've just got to be gentle, Brian, and come at it just a different angle and say, this is really what we need to do. And yeah, eventually a decision is going to have to be made. You're either able to do it or not. And that's okay. If you can't, give me 2 weeks and let's find you a job that you're going to be happier at. And then meanwhile, while we bring in and train up somebody else, which would be great for the office. And I'm not at that point, but that would be where the adaptation is coming as far as our patients, right? So I'm looking at my principles, because I know we were going backwards, and the last thing we have.
All right, so wait a minute. You got to take a breath and let me say something.
No.
Hoggy.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Oink.
Give that guy a microphone and look out. I want to go back to something.
Yeah.
The woman who said, or the 2 women who said, well, no, I want all that other stuff.
Right.
I think it's really important to gain clarity, and you probably did this, but in case somebody isn't sure how to do this, like really finding out what they want.
Right.
And what they want is a result. What they want is a change in the quality of their life. And you and I have talked about this before, that, focus on the who, not the what. Focus on the who and how their life is going to change. And I think what happens when individuals go somewhere else and get everything but chiropractic, they still wanted a result. It's just all they knew before is I go to the chiropractor, I get all of these things, but I feel better at the end. So then they're thinking, well, that's the way I feel better. So if you're to pull it really back and ask them, what result are you looking for? What change in your quality of life? And if I could show you a way to get that quality of life through consistent, regular chiropractic adjustments in my office, are you interested?
Sure.
And they would probably say yes. And then we don't have to send them to somebody else who does all of that. I think if we just pull back for a second and say, if this is what you want and I can show you how to do that, what do you think? And my experience was they were like, well, yeah, I mean, that's really what I want. However you do it, beautiful. Lay down, let me check you.
Right. And that happened with the first one. And then after her first adjustment, she came back and said that's not what you wanted. And that's fine. Not everybody.
Why didn't she want it?
That's a good question. I have to ask her. So that was, and that was, we parted, we didn't burn bridges. We parted good ways. If she wants to come back, so be it. That's fine. And not everybody's going to be for my office, and I'm okay with that. I do think, there are some people out there that just yell and scream, got to have an activator or don't have to have an activator. And it's like, well, here's how I practice, this is what I do, and I'm going to get you there. Some people just don't want to have it. It's all right. So that's all right. I agree with you. I think I would
encourage everybody though to, and this is something I was just at the Wealth Factory this past weekend, and I really appreciated a skill set that my parents taught me as a child that's always served me really well is a legitimate curiosity, not a curiosity to see who I can prove wrong, but a curiosity to see like basically it's kind of where you and I started these conversations with what is your philosophy? What is even your structure of philosophy? That's that's really interesting. How did you come up with that? Or where's that from? Or when you say you don't want to be adjusted that way, why? Like, help me see things through your eyes, not to prove them wrong. Like, I truly believe that the people that we serve are the ones who also have the answers for us in order to improve the next time we're up to bat, right? Like really getting better and better and better about our sweet spot. And they were talking this weekend about Ted Williams, right? The
baseball.
The 400 baseball player. That what was so unique about him was he got really dialed into his sweet spot. It wasn't because he took 10 pitches and he's like, oh, that's it. That's my sweet spot. It's that he really looked at, what am I doing? What are my metrics? What am I really, really, really good at? And how do I do that as the science, art, and philosophy? So I would just encourage everyone, ask your practice members more questions. The people that you serve have the answers for you in order to take the next step. And like Brian is talking about, in order to do it better the next time, because to me, that is part of growth, right? Like it's never going to be perfect, but progress over perfection and learning, like you didn't lose as long as you learned.
Right.
And you took it the next step. You took it the next level. You developed the relationship a little bit deeper and a little bit more.
Yes, and I had an amazing thought. It might have left. It might have left because you touched on something really good there, and it'll come back, I think. But it was, what were you just talking about? Repeat what you said, like I don't know, 20 words ago.
Perfection, and be willing to learn. Like you messed up, it's okay. Learn and move on.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And I know what I was going to say. Good. Brilliant point is back. So one of the things you may do in your office is find everybody's got patients that they either like the most or trust the most. Make them be I don't know what you would call it, a brain trust, if you will. Take them to dinner. What do you like about the practice? What don't you like about the how can we serve you folks the better than we are? We want to be a little bit better. And so, and maybe that's a way, when you name people a patient of the month and you take them out to eat, that would be one of the questions you might be able to have. What is it that you like about the practice? Everybody on their testimonials will tell us about your experience, and it's probably going to be linked to a symptom, or B, the life effect that you're talking about earlier. What is it about, that place was able to give you back? And it's probably, I'm riding horses, I'm hugging the grandkids, I'm doing those things, right? And so that might be an object of, talk about being able to grow and reproduce, because now you're going to grow a practice and reproduce, because now they're going to start thinking, hey, this is my practice. Right, I'm a part of this thing,
Right.
And so I'm going to start sharing, because they're going to learn you better. As bosses and chiropractors, we think everybody gets it. They usually don't, and so. But here's a way that they can get us more at a deeper level, right? They get us on that visit to visit level. But now let's just sit down as person to person and say, how can we better serve you, or what is it that you like so well about things? Because they're giving you your whole marketing program, So here are the things that we can emphasize, and here's the things that we have to work on, because every one of us has things that we need to work on. And so,
Yeah.
and that's there it is, cause and effect, principle 17. I made it back. And so, you work on it and then you become better. You work on this piece and you grow and you reproduce and you assimilate and you eliminate and you adapt. Right. And so cause and effect's an easy one. Something always happens because something led to it. And then whatever happened is going to lead to something else. And so we can always be better. Absolutely.
Yeah, obviously you can have a research and development team, take them out to dinner.
Yeah, there you go. That's a great name for
it. Also on a visit to visit basis, like some of my most favorite questions to find out from your practice members, like to pull them and genuinely be interested. What do you value most about our relationship in your care? Or the whiteboard topic, stickiness. Like, what makes us sticky? Why do you keep coming back? I remember saying to practice members, like, why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are you here? Like, what do you love about coming here? And what way could I serve you better? If this was your joint, what would you do differently? So I want to end with this real quickly, because you're going to find this is so funny. So Brandon is one of the Wealth Factory guys, and he was talking about price, right? So we're talking in this conversation, you and I, of being the very best and being the specialist. And he said that somebody was saying to him one day, like they were just kind of like searching for the cheapest chiropractor. And he's like, that makes total sense. I mean, what could go wrong? It's only your spine and your nerve system. I totally understand why you would want to go with a rock bottom, cheapest one on the block. That makes complete sense. What could go wrong?
Yeah. That's why I get the cheapest barber.
Yeah. Please upgrade. And if you need help doubling your fees, I have done an awesome Facebook Live with Mike Michalowicz of last fall. And I think that the principle of writing down, like physically writing down, just don't put it in your head, write it down, of what value do you bring to the marketplace if you doubled your fees? What does somebody get? Like, do they get a relationship with a specialist? They get a relationship with somebody who has advanced training, like all of these things, a community, yada, 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 yada. Like, write it all down. Even things that you don't talk about with your practice members that you're doing for them by showing up and being yourself, by showing up and going to get specialized training, right? So write it down, what you would do to double your fees. And then write down, what would you do if you quadrupled your fees? Like, what value would you bring, or that you would add on? Would you start a podcast? Would you have articles? What would you do? And then make the quadrupling your standard and double your fees. So now somebody's getting quadruple the value for only double the price. And then we typically feel a lot better about that, because making an income, like Brian is talking about. His practice has grown and he's made more money this in 2018. So what he did was he provided more value. It's all about the value that you provide, because this value then is what dictates the fee that you're going to collect, and the accumulation and the addition of those fees. So this was fun.
Yeah, it was good.
Principle 16, 19, 18.
Yeah, however, let me look. Let me see which ones we got. We got through 16 to 19. So the nice part is principle 20 is innate. So we get to start talking about innate finally.
We didn't do 17.
So we could save 17. 17 is a good one because that's cause and effect, and there's a lot of different layers of that particular one. On the service, it's an easy one, but then it will be fun. We could do that one probably in an entire talk.
All right, so then next week we're back to back. So we're next week.
Yes.
And so here's what we'd like to do. Somebody who regularly is here watching us, or if you're watching us now and you want to be one of the talking heads with us and take up a portion of this, Facebook message me and you can join Brian and I next week. Yep. For principle number 17. If you have a favorite principle and we've talked about it or not, and you want to let me know and join us, we'd love to have you. I also wanted just to kind of prove this is what the big kids do. We can have these kind of conversations and we didn't have to call names. We didn't have to get ugly. We really have the same philosophy and have open discussions. So please, chiropractors, let's get along. Let's not try and beat each other up, and let's recognize that we're all in the same thing. We're all wanting the same thing, is to change the human experience. So let's just be adults and play nice.
That's a good deal.
All right. Hey, thanks for your time.
Congratulations
on your growth last year. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Right. See ya. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.